There's a sequence, there's a code, there's a combination. And when you get the right combination, it unlocks everything for us. What is up, everybody, man? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Coach Code podcast. Got my longtime and very dear friend, Mr. Kevin Schumacher, on with us. What's up, brother?
Hey, life is good, John. Appreciate you having me on this morning.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you jumping in. And, we've chatted on Expert Mentors. I've had you on Coffee and Coaching, just kind of changing things up. And, you're just in the grind. You're always trying to find a way, figure things out. And it's kind of what we're going to, get into. And, I've really been pushing this segment of the podcast really around connecting with just some awesome people that I have in my life that see things a little bit differently, been able to connect some dots. And so, love to have you, love to have, folks on like yourself that really can help a lot of people connect some dots. And, I know we're going to unpack and dive into a lot of things, especially around pivoting in today's climate with, residential real estate. Before we jump in, man, I would just, give a little context, a little background about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you talk about, your circle and your friends and the people you surround yourself with. And I go back to, it was probably the last year or so, you shared a comment, a quote, or made a statement. It was if those in your circle don't inspire you, then you're not in a circle, you're in a cage. And that really hit me like a Mack truck, because that's really like what continues to help us stay ahead and really be a leader in the industry. And so I'm in the Colorado market, so we serve the Colorado Front Range. I started back in 1994. I was only 21 at the time, so I really am young. But it was interesting times back then, because I laugh about, AOL was just, you got mail, right? And it's, I remember I was fortunate enough my uncle was my mentor. And I remember my first week, he handed me a phone book, because I asked him, I said, all right, what do I do? What do I call? And he handed me a phone book, and I said, what do I do with this? He's like, start dialing. And I said, well, what do I say? He said, well, I strongly encourage you to figure it out sooner rather than later. And so, things were just done a lot differently back then. But what I learned early on is it's all about relationships, and it's building those relationships. But also what I learned back in going forward, I was part owner of the Remax franchise. I was with Remax for 23 years before I made the switch over to EXP. And so we trained a lot of agents, helped them grow. We had a big team, and we learned a lot of different things. But the one thing we learned the most is pivoting and being able to understand and really understand the market. And for a lot of the agents out there that are young, and I don't mean young just as an age, but even new to the market, it's the thing that's always helped me is knowing my numbers, really knowing all the data and knowing what's out there, where the market's going. And so that way you can sort of, there's a lot of times where everyone's going straight. And sometimes you got to take a left or a right. You don't just always, doesn't mean you just don't keep going straight. And that's sort of where we are today with the market. So fast forwarding, and I'll come back to 2005, but fast forwarding in 2008, when we did have a huge market correction, not only did the market correct, but I had a huge, life-changing events in my life where I was a single dad with a 2 and a 5-year-old. So I had to personally and internally pivot myself. And that's when I was introduced to you guys. And I started coaching with you guys, and it really helped me really to become more system and process oriented, and also really understand the attraction piece of how to attract audiences. And I feel like that's what has really gave me the competitive advantage, and continue to pivot in different markets.
Yeah. And explain for everybody kind of listening in, what does pivot mean, and what does it mean to you?
Well, to me, it's two things. Is one, I'll use as an example. Back in 2005, I remember we were at the Sanctuary golfing down at Dave Linegar's golf course, and I was with a couple of other brokers, and he was telling me, "Hey, I just brought on this big dog. They're doing this, they're doing this." The agent's only been in the market like 3 years, and I said, "Man, what you brought on was a catcher." And he's like, "A catcher?" And I said, yeah, you brought on an agent that's wearing a catcher's mitt, and all they're doing is waiting to catch the ball. They're
Mhm.
not proactive. And he's like, nah, you're wrong. Well, that agent failed as soon as the market pivoted and as soon as the market switched, because they couldn't see it switch. They didn't have the resources or the systems and the processes. So for me, the pivot is really understanding where's the market going. So an example today is, if you're an agent out there and you have a little team, a big team, or you're trying to grow your team, and your value proposition is on your buyer funnel, on the funnel of attracting buyers, you're going to starve. Your agents are going to starve, because that's not where the market is. So in order to pivot and switch quickly, you have to understand where the leads are coming from, is it a buyer, is it a seller, which obviously today it's a seller's market. Same thing if you're looking to grow your team, you need to have agents that are open-minded, that are coachable, that you can train to win in this market, which is getting listings.
100%. And yeah, I think when we look at, what are all the ways, where's the opportunity, where do we need to be working towards? Um, for you, what is that decision like? Do you lose sight? Is it, hey, we need to make a pivot out of survival, we need to make a pivot here to keep us moving in our known direction? Or do you see a lot of just shifting gears, just trying to figure things out, but not really clear on what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, it's in the perfect world, um, you run it like a business, and you basically follow all the steps that you've taught me for many years, which is having your strategy in place, having your quarterly priorities, staying focused on what those top three things are, having your impact zones of really understanding where the opportunities are coming from, knowing your numbers, knowing that, okay, here's where all of our appointments are coming from, here's where we're falling short. Okay, we're getting appointments, but we're not closing the appointments. So really understanding, when you know your numbers, you know where you need to, whether you need to pour into to people, or you need to seek additional coaching, or additional uh, resources as well. And so that's where the numbers, when you know the data. So on the news this morning, I was going through looking at some things in Colorado as an example. We are actually seeing a decline in our population. People are moving out of the state because of affordability. So you
Mm.
have to know that, and you have to be able to frame your story. So when you're face to face with the consumer, you're able to share those numbers and know where to go. So same thing in today's market. What we're looking at right now is where is the ideal seller? Where do you find the ideal seller? And I was talking to an agent I think it was on Tuesday, and big agent, and this agent has a really good sized team, and we've been blessed with an opportunity to partner with a lot of agents to help them grow their business. And I was talking to this particular agent about helping grow her business. And what I took away from the call was fear, because we started talking about her current structure, and we started talking about how her agents are doing. And she's like, honestly, Kevin, she's like, I'm fearful. She's like, I don't know how my agents are going to survive. And I said, well, what are they doing? They said they're working with buyers. They can't get anything under contract. They're competing over and over with multiple offers, and they're not winning. So I'm spending all my time coaching them up on how to win the offers, and I'm not out on listing appointments. And so so basically how we shifted the mindset in the call is she needs to be coaching her agents up on how they can also go get listings and how they can grow. And that really, the conversation shifted to circle prospecting. How do you go acquire off market properties? How do you win in those? Many people are still chasing expireds and FISBOs, which is a great source, but if everybody else is doing it, again, you got to pivot, you got to switch, you got to be creative.
Do you look at, so kind of hearing the strategy more so kind of on a pivot, is it also a pivot within the business model itself? I think one thing that always has to hold true is the overall vision for the organization, right? What is it? What does this business stand for? What are our values? How do we make decisions? Why is this business important for me, for this circle, for this community? And then, what's the destination? What's that, 3-year sweet spot that we're trying to get to? Are you looking at from a shifting direction sometimes within the strategy, or like, man, we just even need to tweak the whole business model? And if you look at the elements of business model, definitely who your ICP is, right? Who your ideal client is. And just kind of what I'm hearing you say right there, maybe that agent's IC, maybe who their person has been a buyer. They've built their business around working with buyers. And right now, I mean, they could probably go make more money picking up a job at Amazon or Walmart even, instead of, chasing buyers.
Absolutely. I think that you have to be able, and you have to be open minded and not stubborn. Which I'm speaking from experience on this. You have to be stubborn to be open to pivoting and switching and changing the model. And I believe that there's a lot of us that have had to do that over the last 3, 5, and even 7 years, where we had to take off the blinders because we thought it was really only one way. And as an example, we had to pivot and switch with our business model of figuring, okay, I've always been on a team. I started as a buyer's agent to growing a team. We had anywhere from, we've had as little as 3 to as many as 12 agents on our team. But the thing that'll take you under is overhead. And so if you lose, if you have all of this overhead, and that goes from a big lease, goes from all these platforms, it goes to being too heavy on your admin. I mean, if the market all of a sudden starts to change and you're not ready, or you don't have that that cushion in those reserves in the bank, I mean, it's going to eat those up really fast, and you're now going to start you're going to be very reactive on all of your decisions. They may not necessarily be the right decisions for you or for your business. So most definitely you have to be open to the business model. And I'd say that the one thing that really has helped us navigate through this whole piece is sort of having not sort of but having an ascension ladder for agents. So basically, I've always loved to train agents. I've loved to help newer agents, new to newer agents, grow and grow their business. And but I always, there was always like a, I always say there's like a lid on the opportunity jar.
Mhm.
And so we've been able to modify that opportunity where they can come aboard the team, but then ascend and become an independent agent, still utilize the same systems and processes that we're using, and create more income opportunities for themselves. So I do believe you have to be really open minded, and you have to be a listener. You have to really put yourself out there in situations where you're going to be vulnerable, to listen and share and be open to what others are doing and see how that could also benefit your model.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And looking at, I think, with the model perspective, and really it's just how do you deliver and create, deliver, and capture value. That's the easiest way to think about business model. What's your value proposition that to your ideal client, and can't that you can keep, right? There's a
Right.
lot of people out there that can make a lot of promises, but very few can make a promise and keep it. And so just being able to be real clear on what that model looks like. And and I'm always looking at, we know that the the real opportunity, like if you're not focused on listings right now, you're dying. Like you're I mean, you're on the downslide, and like you're in cash flow problems. You're probably, like you said, very fearful. And what do you see with agents and people that like will make the move, get over on the listing side, 100% all in? And I had a conversation with Cindy yesterday and Tyler, and about what, 3 or 4 years ago, Cindy made that commitment with her organization that they were a listing centric organization. That's all they talk about. That's all they focus on is listings. And like she has like crazy inventory, and things are selling fast, but she's always got inventory because they made
Yep.
that commitment to position themselves as the listing authority in their marketplace. Why do agents not make that move faster?
Yeah, I believe that there's it's the own message in their own head. I believe that people are fearful. They fear competition. Um, uh, I believe you got to put yourself, get out of your own sandbox and really understand what others are doing to be successful in those arenas. And people are just scared to pick up the phone. Um, Again, I think when you look at the buyer platforms, those platforms are out there where these are people coming in, so it's rather easy. right? Somebody is doing a little home search. You call them up. Hey, you came to our, came to our site, wanted to see if you had any questions or need help buying your home, or, those little simple things that people have done for years. You got to be able to change that message, but also you have to be able to talk and go, you have to be able to go to have the right audience. So what I mean by that is what we've got really specific on what is the ideal seller for us today. And so, on average, it was people move every 5 to 7 years is what the trend has been for a long time. I believe now it's even shifted, and there's a good percentage of people that are moving every 3 to 5 years. So what we did is we went really deep and focused on neighborhoods and said, okay, let's get really intentional on neighborhoods that are 3 to 5 years old. And because we're going to have less issues when it comes to maintenance and deferred maintenance and all those things. So we got really intentional on who we're calling, and then we also fine-tuned what our message was. There's so many scams that are out there, so you have to de-scam you have to de-scam your message in your conversation and just be real and
Yeah.
just have an open and real conversation, again, by knowing your numbers, and just come from a position of helping. And that has really helped us. So then it's just volume. Then it's just a volume of making calls coming from a good place. And there's a lot of people out there. There's some people that will be irritated by your phone call, but there's a lot of people out there that are really open to that conversation. They just don't know where to go. I've talked to people that are 40, 50, 60 years old, and they never sold a home before. And
Mm,
like, well, I don't know. I didn't know what the first step is. What would that look like? I mean, it's not hard conversations, right?
yeah.
You just got to be willing and open to have that conversation. Put yourself out there.
Yeah. On the number side of things, Kev, what are, because we can easily get overwhelmed looking at too many numbers. What's the handful of numbers that are really most important to pay attention to right now?
You want to look at absorption rates. Like if you're looking at neighborhoods, you want to go in and say, okay, what are the neighborhoods that where inventory is moving? So again, the sweet spots are always going to be sort of your track homes to semi-track homes. Those are going to be where the move-up buyers are. So those are going to be you want to pay attention to those numbers, and so you know what your turnover rate is, and then once you know what the turnover rate is, then you want to also be able to internalize those numbers, so you're sharing those numbers with the consumer. When you also know the market data of and the statistics on what's happening in the market, you can also share that. There's a lot of consumers out there that are saying, the price of my home's going up somewhere between 3 and 5,000 a month. So I'm going to wait another 3 or 4 months, and that way I can make more money. And I believe the simple thing is this: you will never know that you maximize and hit the high end, top of the market, until 3 to 6 months after you're hit the high end of the market. That's all timing. So it's really being able to position that conversation and share again the market statistics that's going to be able to help you give them the right information to make that decision too.
So you look at that, and then being able to talk to educate, or really come at a position of authority with buyers and sellers, investors in today's market. What other key numbers inside of the business do you pay attention to within your business?
Well, so what we do, we track all of the. So we have an ISA department, inside sales department. So what we're tracking is how many phone calls are going out, how many messages are going out. Then we have the response rate. So what is the response rate? And then we have spoke to, and then we also have appointments set, and then we have appointments met. So just knowing our numbers, and when we know our numbers, then we look at those metrics and say, okay, now how can we improve that? So right now our whole focus is okay, we're having conversations, we're having appointments. Now we make sure that we can increase the appointments to the to contracts. So it's that conversion piece that we're looking at, right, that we're really paying a lot of attention to.
Where and for a lot of agents that don't want to, or they just don't know how, right? Their whole business has been, like you said, being the catcher, or they've built their business off of relationships. And what I've seen with a lot of relationship built businesses right now, things are a little slow, and probably a little bit of seasonality, probably a little bit of uncertainty. But there's some inconsistencies there. So for you, it's like, hey, as you're coaching agents through and trying to get them to, focus on the listing side of the business, where are the opportunities? Where do they need to be focused, their time and energy?
Man, if I was a newer agent today, the first thing I would do is I'd do my research. I'd do my research on my market and say, again, identify the top couple of neighborhoods, and I'd get myself a dialer. I'd get some a good data set. I mean, there's some great providers out there. I know a lot of people use Red X to Vulcan. And you can really, like example, we use Vulcan 7, and you can dial in on neighborhoods. So you can literally go into there and dial in on that exact neighborhood, extract the data, and now you're dialing. And all you're doing is you're dialing and sending messages, trying to find sellers, and you just hone in that message. And there's a lot of we had that training with Alex last week, which had some gold nuggets on circle prospecting and really honing in the message, and then staying consistent. I remember that. Many years ago, you guys always said that everyone's looking for the now buyer or the now seller, and so sometimes that's hard to find. But when you build your pipeline out and you can consistently add value and nurture, and nurture is a simple conversation, a simple email, it's a simple postcard. And so building out that pipeline is absolutely huge, and nurturing on that, because now all of a sudden you have 3, 4, 6 month of opportunities ahead of you. And then the longer you build that out, then that's the longevity of your business.
Yeah, no, I love it. And most real estate agents, they're not even able, to think past the next 30, 45 days. They're so concerned, hey, I need to close a deal so I can, pay my mortgage. They need to, they're more desperate than anything, and understanding to build, a sustainable business on a foundation is that you have to build that pipeline. And, for us, when, we had the call center within the brokerage and we went, the data route, what we were finding is that it was a 10 to 11% turnover for somebody that said that they were going to be making a move in the next 12 months. And so for our ISAs, we wanted to get 600 people in their pipeline that said, hey, yeah, we're going to do something in the next 12 months. Because even if you just say 10% of those, that means 60 transactions from there is going to happen in the next 12 months. But what we found with the data was that they moved a lot faster. They moved, 3.5 to 4 months. When somebody said, hey, we're going to do something in the next 12, they ended up moving in the next 3.5 to 4. And where, our big lesson learned was that we just sucked at follow-up. We were so fixated on getting to that number on the front end. We didn't have any good systems in place to make sure that they didn't fall through the cracks. And I think our lesson learned was like 1.7 million that we lost out to the
Yeah.
company after paying agent splits, because we did not have really, other than relying on humans to follow up, we didn't have any good automated, systems and processes to help us capture even a portion of those opportunities.
Yeah.
So, it's really key understanding that you have to have some patience over there. And one of the other statistics, and Alex shared this. And so for those of you that have a database that are buyer inquiries, you have to realize that 30 to 40% of those people in there have a home to sell. And I think Zillow had a statistic that came out that said by 2024, 55% of all Zillow leads will also have a home to sell.
Wow.
So if you have been heavy on the buy side, do not like disregard those. You've got to have some type of communication going to your database about selling. And there
Yeah.
has to be some strategies around that as well.
Well, and two things I'll share with that is, one, think about, as we're doing circle prospecting, as we're anytime we're picking up the phone and calling somebody, that's an interruption. And a lot of times people can get very reactive. I get reactive when somebody calls me, like, oh, come on, really, I don't want to buy anything. I hang up. But it's the follow up. And so if you're brave and bold enough to follow up again, and maybe it's not a phone call, maybe it's a text message. or maybe you're able to get an email and it's the email, but it's the follow-up that builds the rapport. And there's many a times where it's the second and third time where they realize that we are real, we're coming from a good place. One of the other things, as you mentioned with the database that we share with newer and even some of the seasoned agents, it is amazing how many people are not mining their own database.
Mm,
And so the one thing that we always encourage our people to do, the very first thing is the first question I ask is what CRM are you using? And some
yep.
say none, right? And others will say, oh, this one, right? And I'm like, when's the last time you reached out to them? Oh, I did a post on Facebook to all my people. And I'm like, no, when's the last time you called them? I don't know. When's the last time you called every single person in your database? So it's an easy conversation of picking up the phone. Hey, John, man, it's been a while since we've had a conversation. I just wanted to reach out. I noticed that I was getting ready to send out my monthly market trends report to all my friends and family. I noticed you weren't on the list. I wanted to just reach out and see if I could get permission to add you on the list. You're going to say yes. Awesome. And so, what's the best email address? And hey, by the way, I'm getting ready to send out my baseball schedules. I want to make sure you get one of those. Can you verify with your home address? Now I verify the address. I got I have your email address, and then I simply mail you a handwritten note, a little notepad with a magnet, and you put it on your refrigerator. So it's that simple touch, and now all of a sudden you're doing, whether it's monthly or quarterly, whether it's digital, whether it's postcards, you're staying in front and you're nurturing. That one simple strategy is going to get you back in the door because it's all top of mind. It's like, how do you gain mind share? And everybody's so fast to go buy leads, but they're not reinvesting into their people. And
Mm,
you say this all the time, that if you're not in front of them, you're going to get outfriended really fast. And so, especially in today's climate, like what's the statistic? Every person knows at least 10 real estate agents or something crazy like that. But this will be the year that in the next 12 months will be the time where there'll be a lot of agents that will get out of the business because
mhm.
they're not making any money. Like you said, they're going to go work for Amazon.
Yeah, and it's just because they're not aligning to develop the capabilities to where the market is going, and they're not getting out there. Yeah, I think what Collier, I'd always heard, go where the puck is going, but he said,
Right.
go, throw the ball to where your receiver is going to be, and I was like, oh, that's good,
That's good.
and so really looking for understanding where things are going within this market and understanding behavior. And you and I, before we went live, you shared a behavior that could make things interesting, in the next couple of years, and that is, a lot of homeowners are going in and had pulled a bunch of cash out of out of the equity that had been built or falsely built, or who knows, right? Time
Yeah.
time will tell the story. What are your thoughts around that? Holy smokes, that could get
Man,
interesting.
it's in 2005. I remember my business partner Ron. We were running and gunning, doing tons of new construction, and I think we sold 350, 60, whatever it was, homes that year. And we had a great year. And he's like, just stash cash. He's like, this won't last forever. I'm like, whatever. This is never going to change. And all of a sudden, the market just shifted fast. And I believe we are getting there. DJ was sharing last week at your mastermind about the trends, that he was talking to a big hedge fund investor that he knows, and he said that what he shared is that there's a lot of consumers that in 5, 6, 7, people were really frivolous with their money. They're pulling equity out and just buying cars and this and that and just
Yeah.
fun stuff because it was easy. Now people are pulling equity out to live on because of the cost of living. We hear all about the inflation and the numbers. They're pulling equity out to live on. And so as this market starts to flatten, which it will, I believe by third, fourth quarter, we're going to start to see those signs. Those people are going to be in trouble. And so we have to be, again, look ahead of where the market's going and understand that and understand our numbers. So I believe, like right now, with there's a lot of institutional buyers out there in the markets that are offering cash offers. You have to figure out a way that you can embrace that model right now why that exists and create opportunities for your sellers, and turn that into an opportunity for them, because that fixes a lot of problems for people. But there will be a time when that institutional buyer will go away and the opportunity is switched for them. And then again, look ahead, and you're going to have to be able to pivot. If you have all of the data sets in the audience built, all you have to do when the market shifts is change your message. And so there will be a time when short sales are coming. There will be a time when foreclosures are coming. It's not now, but it will be
Sure.
coming. And so that's the awareness that agents need to have, is support where the trends are now, find those opportunities, and then be able to and be ready to pivot. Don't always be defensive or reactive, like embrace what's working.
Right. Yeah. And talking with, Matt and DJ yesterday, and, they were like, we can only play defense so much, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else really to cut. And it's like, no, that's why you've got to go all on the offensive. You have to be playing offense, and you've got to be focused on the activities of where the real opportunity is in any market. And, are there buyers that are successfully winning opportunities? Well, duh. I mean, home sales are still happening
Right.
at a high clip, but who's the buyer? Like, what's their story, right? What's their what do you know about them? Who are they, right? This goes back to ideal client profile. Like, what are their wherewithal? What are their capabilities? What are their desires? And you talked about your message to market match. Once you know what your market and where the opportunity is, how do you join the conversation in their head? That's for me, the simplest way to think about that is, okay, who's our person? What's keeping them up at night? And how can we join the conversation in their head? And so that's really kind of the thought process that we've all got to go through. And me no different, right? With residential real estate agents, it's like, okay, who's my person?
Right.
What's keeping them up at night? And how can I join the conversation in their head? And you had mentioned that conversation with a team lead that has been growing a pretty large organization that is fearful, really fearful about growing a team in today's market. And you had mentioned something before we jumped on, is like, I wouldn't build a team in this market unless you have a solid, proven strategy to acquire real opportunities and real clients in today's climate.
I agree. It's what we've done is, we're lean and mean right now in our team. The number one thing right now is just watching our overhead, creating opportunities. We've been fortunate to partner with a lot of real estate agents, and when we're sharing strategies. But that's the biggest advice I'm giving people is stay lean with your overhead. But also, again, I go back to embracing what's working. We've recently partnered with a large institutional buyer that's looking for opportunities in different markets. And so early on, we're people are like, wait, they're a little intimidated by them. There is huge opportunities out there, that you can partner and partner up with some investors and help them fulfill a need. And some people are like, well, these large companies are coming over and taking over our markets. What they're doing is they're creating up more opportunities. If you think about it, they're creating executive rentals for employees that are moving into the area that need a place to live. So
Mm,
you just have to be able to change the conversation in your head, as well as your clients, and just again look, where is the biggest opportunity for us. And also, going back to the different audiences, like right now, my ideal client right now is not a first time home buyer, because it's really hard on them. It's really hard for somebody in our market to compete against when they're putting 3 to 5% down, and they're competing with cash offers or people that are putting 50% down. It's now, if they don't have to buy right now, they probably need to sit on the sidelines. Now the unfortunate piece is, as interest rates are going up, they may get priced out of the market. But you can do one of two things: you can keep taking them out there and showing them property and lead them down a road of where they're not going to succeed, or you change the conversation and let them know the only way you're going to win is this. and then maybe mom and dad coming in and helping them sign on the loan, whatever it is, restructuring. You got to be creative to win the deal. So, and again, know when you look at absorption rates, know the absorption rates. You got to know the list to sales price ratio of the different price points, and you'll find that there's certain price points like the top end of the market. That's usually the point that's going to start to slow and shift the fastest. So just watch all the numbers, and you'll start to see the shifts. And then again, what's working in your market? Who's buying the properties? Who's selling the properties? And make sure that's where all your focus is.
Yeah. And always, what's working well in your business already? Do you
Yeah.
do you have a good strategy that you're not, really squeezing all of the juice, all of the opportunity out of? And that's typically where, hey, this is working and this is working well. And, the other, the market indicators and everything else kind of lines up. So do we need to go deeper here with
Yeah.
what's working already? And,
Yeah.
this, real estate agents tend to, get something going, dabble a little bit, and then they're off to the next thing, right? They don't
Yeah.
go
No,
deep enough.
yeah, squirrel. I remember at the mastermind last week. There, I was sitting next to my business partner Cheryl, and we were talking, and she's like, "Hey, what about this idea?" I'm like, "Squirrel." What about this? Squirrel. Like, top, three top priorities. Like, what are our three things we're doing this quarter to move the needle? Now, as I shared with you here, in January, we had an opportunity, and I'm like, John, this is not on this is not one of my top three priorities, but I can't pass this up. And so I had to drop one thing and bring that in and move quickly. So it's anyway. So that's one thing I've really found is especially in markets like this is stay very focused and also really know who also are your resources. Who's that go-to person that you can bounce things off of to make sure you're staying on course and alignment, because they always you always talk about like you can talk about a naval ship, and they can get off course by 1 degree, but if you wait too long to recorrect, you're way off
You're
course,
way off
especially
course.
when you've always told us when we're moving and implementing quickly, those check-ins have to be that much more frequent, otherwise you can get off course really fast.
Real fast. And yeah, that's the thing, right? Is not paying attention, and you've gone down the path way too far, and it's gonna be real hard to shift and come back to even get back on the right path. So it's really, really key. What do you what do you think um for agents right now? Kind of the biggest thing that always really want to push people to be thinking about is the allocation of their time. Where do they need to be spending their time, and in a majority of that time, like we've talked about, being proactive, not being reactive to this business. And one of the downsides of even working with buyers is you are reactive. So being able to let go of that. Most of them, they say, "Hey man, I got a fish on the line. I got to get this one across." And it's like, man, but you're exhausting so much time, energy, and effort. Like it doesn't, it doesn't. You could reallocate that time and get a better return. So where are you really pushing, your agents, yourself, from a time allocation standpoint?
Well, so as you were sharing that, it brought up a couple of thoughts. Is you always tell me there's a lot of no's to get to the couple of yeses,
Yep.
and if you say yes to something, that means you're going to have to say no to some other things. So making sure you're really clear on what those are. And the other thing, thought that you brought, that it was, make sure you got the right people on the bus. Make sure you got the right people in the right seats. You and Kinder always shared with me as we build our organization out, is looking at our org chart and first finding all the positions, whether you're a one person and your name's in every box, or you're 3 people, 10 people, however big your organization is, really figuring out what all are the positions needed, and then the name, and then getting the right names, but making sure you're not filling a seat out of based on an emotional decision. You're
Yeah.
filling that seat because they actually are that is in alignment with what their skill set is. And so again, what I'd focus on going forward in this market is really honing in on what you're good at and making sure that all of the people on your team are in the right seat, number one, and then being really clear on who is our ideal client, where do they live, where do they congregate, and then how do we get in front of them. And so the top two things I would say, if I was a struggling agent, or if I was, what I shared with, with this agent the other day who's so concerned about her team, is what I'd share is go mine that database and go deep, really hone in your messages, and then identify the markets and go after off-market properties, whether that's non-owner occupied. There's all kinds of different strategies, and I'm always happy to jump on calls and share strategies with people. But those are the two things that I would really focus on. And that's where our priorities are right now, because that's where the biggest opportunity is. We'll
Yeah.
still work with buyers because situations always come up, and there's always different kinds of motivations that buyers have and sellers have. But we're really focused on who that ideal client is.
Yeah. Yeah. All the time, right? Where is the real opportunity? And, just because somebody has the motivation and desire to do something doesn't necessarily mean they can. And you just have to have that criteria to know who your person is, and who you can get, to the closing table the quickest, really. Who can you get there, because they're they're just, they have the capabilities in today's market to accomplish the outcome that they're after. The other thing too is, just because they want to and they're not able to right now doesn't mean that they can in the future. So that goes back to the database, right? Building those nurtures, focused on nurtures. And, part of our, two outcome, that we were always looking for with our call team was appointments and nurtures, right? They had a daily metric that they had to hit on both sides. So what are you doing to set that appointment? And then how many conversations you need to be able to talk to somebody and identify that they're legit and they're really going to do something in the next 12 months. So just knowing it's the balance of the present and the future within your database. And most agents are just so focused on the now. They're not thinking about, 12, 18 months down the road.
Absolutely. And I would say the one thing through the years that has always served us well was focusing on that 3 to 6 month client.
Mm,
That's where we poured the most of our energy, was a 3 to 6 month client, because everybody forgets about them.
yeah.
And those 3 to 6 months turn into 30 to 90 days.
Mhm.
So so all it is, it's simple. It's just conversations. It's conversations, adding things of value. And will they answer your call all the time? No, but you leave a message. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
they need to know you're there. And
Yeah.
then again, just be clear on what your message is.
Yeah. For sure. Absolutely. No, it is. It's knowing where to look for the opportunity, and then knowing, the numbers to pay attention to in the decisions of attention, where we need to focus yourself and your team around you to make sure that, we're there where the real opportunity is. Um, Kev, anything else kind of around, to be, for somebody, growing and building their business, no matter what stage they're at, that, understanding where those opportunities, things we're talking about, but anything else that they really need to be thinking about and paying attention to?
You shared the other day at the mastermind about what's your 3 year goal. What is 3 years look like, and what would the ideal scenario? What would your ideal business look like in 3 years? And that really has had me thinking a lot over the last week of, and really backing into that number. And so what I'd say is just being really intentional of what does that look like.
Mm,
Is it the growth of a team, of your team? And if it is the growth of a team, what is the business model? So in the mastermind, we went around the room, and we were, and everyone shared what things look like in 3 years. And one person said, I want 30 agents. And there's a younger gentleman, great guy. And I want 30 agents on my team. And what went in my head is, do you want 30 agents because that number sounded well? Or do you want 30 agents because of you've done your numbers in the model, and that's what it's going to take? I'm not discounting his 30.
sure.
All I question is did you think through what that looks like? Because in my previous models, 30, that was a train wreck. Like that, it didn't, didn't work. But that's not where I wanted to go. Now, so what I would challenge people on is really being clear on what their model looks like, and then understanding the numbers, understanding if you have sales partners on your team, how are you going to support them? So support them in their in the growth, because again, if your value proposition is giving them leads, your relationship is elastic to your lead flow. And I've
That's a
made
great
that
point.
decision before.
Such a
I
great point.
made sorry, I didn't make that decision. I made that mistake before, because I was at a Christmas party and I overheard my agent trying to recruit another agent because we get so many leads. And I'm like, I went to the bar and got another drink. I'm like, oh crap. So be really clear on what you bring. So that's what I'd share, is just be clear on your model, be clear on the audience. So you got your ideal agent and you got your ideal client, and then nurture, nurture, nurture.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, definitely don't build your value proposition off of leads. If you yeah, that's just a recipe for failure for sure.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. And you put them in the catcher seat and you create a false sense of entitlement and in a false sense of belief, because one of the biggest struggles that I've seen with any agent that's ever left a really good team is that they struggle with creating demand. Getting out and being able to create demand, create opportunities, because they are in that environment of where somebody's been really good at creating and doing that for them. So yeah, 100%. I love it. Kev, as always, man, I really appreciate you jumping in and anybody tuning into this, best way to connect, all social media at Kevin Sells CO.
Yep, that's perfect. That's one.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I know we'll be connecting soon.
I appreciate it, John.
See you. Bye.